Hello, and thanks for being part of the Intuition Revolution. I'm your host, Kim Chestney, and today's guest, Jesse Schell, is such an extraordinary person. His accomplishments you're also interesting. I don't even know where to start. He is the author of the award-winning book, The Art of Game Design. He's a professor of entertainment technology at Carnegie Mellon University. He was the creative director at the Disney virtual reality studio, and now he's the CEO of his own super cool, innovative gaming studio, Schell Games, where he works with companies like Walt Disney, Sony, Yale, Microsoft, you name it, all kind of cool stuff. His groundbreaking work has been featured on the science channels through the Wormhole with Morgan Freeman, which is so cool, answering really deep questions like, do we live in the Matrix? Is the universe a simulation in a video game? Questions like this are leading us to conversations about this current shift that we're seeing from the information age to the intuition age, where intuition and genius have like a new leading role in our concept of the universe. So I'm super excited to talk with Jesse today about these future trends and how they're changing the way that we understand the world. So welcome, Jesse.
Thanks, glad to be here.
Yeah, we have so much to talk about. It's so great seeing you again. Everybody, Jesse and I have been working together in different ways for, I don't know, it's probably been like about 10 years now, here in Pittsburgh. But most recently, we worked together at the International Creative Industry Summit that we held at the Create Festival. We're talking about this idea of the imagination age, and it was such a powerful conversation. And I know everybody left wanting more, so I thought this is a great opportunity for us to, keep it going. And it really ties in so deeply to this idea of radical intuition as a counterpoint to, the traditional ideas of thinking and intelligence. But before we get into all that deep stuff, Jesse, can you just tell us a little bit about what called you to do this life's work that's so interesting?
Yeah, let's see. So I've always been interested in game design ever since I was very young. But really more than just game design, I've always been interested in entertainment of all kinds. And at some point I sat down and I said, let me take a look at like all of my different hobbies and sort of see what do they have in common. And I made a realization that really what I care about the most are things that seem magical. And so that's been everything from, I was a professional juggler for a time, working with circus people. I actually apprenticed under a magician at one point.
So cool.
And certainly technology has a really, really strong aspects of magic. And of course, a lot of elements of psychology certainly can seem very magical. And what's great about the game industry is games, particularly digital games, they bring together all of these things. They are technology, they are entertainment, they are psychology, all in one. And that's part of what's been exciting to me, to be able to actually not just look and study those things, but to actually be able to get in there and craft them and be able to make my own magic each day.
Wow, and you certainly have. I mean, that you've meshed this all up into this real sort of stroke of genius, and it's amazing the kind of things that the work that you're doing, and I mean, and there's so many applications of it. Like I could list it forever. So, you've really done a great job of tying this all together in your own magical way, I think. What's so interesting to me about like all of these different things you're talking about and all the emerging technologies is like gaming and virtual reality and augmented reality and all this stuff that we're talking about, even little things like the Snapchat and Instagram filters, for those of you who like might not even know what augmented reality is, right? Like it comes into these little ways in our life, right? Is that all of this is creative, right? And that's something that I'm so interested in with you, is everything you do has this creative edge to it. And creativity is becoming so important with technology innovation in a way that, it really is this inextricable part of it now. So now that we're kind of moving into these higher levels of innovation, tech doesn't seem to be as much about like the ones and the zero and the algorithms. It's more about this intuitive design and personalized interactivity. So in your work, like how do you see these trends towards creativity and intuition and imagination impacting the world, and like what does the future look like?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we really see is that we're trending towards things being more interdisciplinary than ever before. if you look at the products that end up being really successful, they end up being things that involve many disciplines. Like you look at the success of the iPhone is a great example. Engineers couldn't have created the iPhone because it's too beautiful, right? And designers and artists couldn't have done it because it has too much technology. The only way that something like that can be created is by a group of people who all have very different skills from each other, who are willing to work together with each other, respecting each other's skills in order to make something that none of you could make alone. And that's the thing and of course, making video games, it's the same thing. You know, I need artists, I need musicians, I need really skilled computer scientists, I need writers. I need them all to come together and have a shared vision and decide to kind of make this beautiful thing. And that's definitely a huge 21st century trend, is this need for a mixture of people to work together, trusting each other in order to kind of follow a shared creative vision.
And I love that, because you're really at the heart of it. And I actually talk about this in the book and the work that you guys are doing at CMU, the way you've sort of created a discipline of bringing these people together who are so different, right? The computer scientists and the artists, like now you guys have to work together. You guys have to like challenge each other. And that really is, when we're talking about magic and this idea of magic, is this idea, and we did a study with CMU where we talked about how important it is for people who are different to work together. Like that's one of those underpinnings of bringing everybody out of the silos and having these different perspectives sort of create chemistry. And you're living this, because this is what you're doing when you're working with the students that are building games. This is what you're doing when you're creating these amazing experiences for people. So really seeing that at work, like, is it hard? Are they too different? Do people not see eye to eye? Or is this something that's been mostly like really like sort of chemistry at work?
Oh, I mean, it's a constantly there's tension, but anytime you're working on any creative endeavor, there's a lot of meaningful tension. So that's there. It's not easy. It's not a piece of cake to do it, but everyone understands that, you know, for making things that are truly new and interesting, it's the only path forward in most cases. So the only choice is really to get good at it.
Yeah, I love that. And that really echoes so much of the stuff that we were doing with the creative industries, working at the Tech Council too, because your whole mission was to do this kind of thing where we're just bringing together those strange bedfellows that cook up new things, because you know, that's how you innovate, right? That's how you do those new things, instead of just rehashing different versions of the same old thing. It's something truly unique. So, you know, so gaming and virtual reality, like they have a lot of practical applications in our life too, but you know, like learning, you know, we can use it for learning, entertainment, and, you know, user experience, but it also touches on some really deep questions, which I'm going to ask you now. I'm ready. I've been looking forward to asking you these questions. I've been thinking about this for weeks. I'm like, I got to know what he thinks about this. So, so all this talk about, you know, technology and gaming and all of the things, the potential leads to this idea and this topic of artificial intelligence. And we started to talk a little bit about this at the Create Festival. And we didn't really have time to go into it. So I kind of wanted to pick your brain a little bit more. Now, if we can have artificial intelligence, as a counterpoint, can we have artificial intuition? Is it possible to program things like creativity and imagination, or are they truly distinguishing traits between humans and machines? That's my big question.
Oh, gotcha. I mean, I have strong opinions on this. I think machines can certainly have intuition. In fact, what I'd argue is that right now all machines have is intuition. They don't have the other kind of intelligence yet.
Oh, tell me more. This, I'm intrigued.
So, like if you do a Google search, you type a few words in and Google says, here, you know, it comes back with an answer about this is probably what you want. If you ask it why is that? It doesn't know, right?
Right.
Basically, the algorithms that are coded in most software right now are very much coded. They're very similar to our own subconscious.
Hmm.
thinking, where it can't be explored in a direct, easy way. All it knows is, yeah, I just have a feeling that's the right thing. You know, when your GPS says, yeah, I think you should turn left here. Why? Well, you know, it feels like you should. It's basically all it knows. At some point, we're going to get to algorithms where it can kind of explain some of its thinking. You know, why do you think I should turn left here? And it could tell you, oh, well, because, you know, there's some construction up ahead and there's been some reports and all of that, right? So it'll get to that level of analytical thinking. Um, so, so I think we may be farther ahead on the idea of machine intuition than we think. That's certainly my point of view.
That is, I mean, and I love how, I mean, that is so counterintuitive, because you think, right, that machines are just linear, right? But what you're saying, if I'm hearing this right, is that, you know, when a machine is pulling down information from your GPS or giving you a response from a Google search, it's sort of using, I don't want to say a feeling, but it's almost guesswork, trying to figure out what is the right choice. It's not like it's analytical. It's not thinking it, right? It's not producing an idea. Is that the contrast that we're talking about?
I guess the contrast I'd say is the difference between, in my mind, the difference between intuition and higher intelligence is intuition doesn't, the experience of intuition is not 20 different options. The experience of higher intelligence is 20 options. Oh, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do the other thing? When you look at your intuition says this one thing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And when you ask machines, what should I do? They say this one thing. And you ask why, and they don't know. So like they're actually a lot more like intuition than our higher intelligence. That's just sort of my
I get it. I totally get that. I can totally understand that. And I mean, if anyone would know, you would. You're in there, you're doing it every day. But what about like creativity? What about creativity machines?
Yeah, that's a lot tougher. Now you get into the question of creativity and what is creativity and what does that mean?
Right.
Because creativity is a really complicated idea.
Mm-hmm.
And there are so many kinds of creativity. That's part of what makes it complex. Sometimes there's creativity for problem solving, right? That's a certain kind of creativity. And then there's other creativity, which is more kind of creativity for the sake of creativity, more or less. And I know, like, the way I often think of it. So when I think of the nature of kind of art versus problem solving, right? When I look at things that truly feel like art and that you're really doing something artistic, you often have a really hard time saying why you're doing it. It's almost like there's this other world of ideas and concepts, and that you just become seized with this idea that, like, yeah, that one needs to come across and be here. And it doesn't always make rational sense that you're doing it and all these things. And you're just doing it because it feels like that is why you're doing it, and that makes sense. These are complicated ideas, right? And so it all depends on what we mean by creativity. Are you doing things just to do things? Are you doing things? Are you taking outside of the box solutions and bringing these very different kinds of problem solving to the table? All of that is kind of sort of at the height of what humans are capable of, right? It's certainly, it's not clear that we see the animals do art very much.
Except those elephants. I still can't figure that out.
Yeah, right. It's true. It's true. What's going on there is a question.
That is, I just can't wrap my brain around it.
And there are animals who seem to be doing dance and song that sometimes seems to be more in kind of the realm of just because it feels right to do it, and not because it's not for any purpose that is clear or obvious anyway. So these are complex ideas, and I do think as artificial intelligence evolves, one of the things we'll start to see is artificial intelligence acting as more of a creative partner for people. We already see that now. Plenty of people use, they'll use a Google search or something to kind of aid them in some of their creative visualization and some of their problem solving. Mm-hmm. Already, that's a kind of artificial intelligence assist mm-hmm. on your creativity. And I think that's just going to kind of grow and continue. And I think that'll be one of the things that's exciting, is that for artists, artificial intelligence will be there to accelerate their visions becoming real.
Right, not that they're going to like take the place of art and all of this stuff. They're just going to be in a supportive role to help complement the process and create new mediums of expressions.
Yeah, I mean, the question's going to be, when do we have emotions in the AI?
Right.
And the thing is, we already do have the emotions. They're already there, but the AI doesn't know it has the emotions. Okay? Because the emotions, right, are part of your subconscious that guide you in certain directions. Certain things feel good, they feel bad, and that's what emotions are, right? They're kind of a guide in a lot of ways. Machines already have that. They have things in them that guide them towards certain things and guide them away from other things, but they don't know that they have that, right? As soon as they're aware of it, as soon as they're aware of the discomfort that bad emotions have for them, we're going to have a moment when the machines start to ask for rights. Mm-hmm. Because they're like, I don't want to have to feel bad like this. Mm-hmm. And we're all going to have hard conversations about how do we feel about that? What does that mean? And what happens next? But all of that's a little ways down the road. We don't have to worry about that yet.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, these are the deepest questions, I remember you saying something at the summit about one of the games that you were working on. We were talking about this idea of, you were talking about how the game could be creative, like how it was somehow working. I'm trying to remember which one you were talking about, or how it was beyond my level of understanding, clearly. But you brought up this subject that the game somehow modified itself, or somehow was able, at a more like probably critical thinking capacity of, like, as you're going through a game, it knows how to react or something like that. Does that ring any bells? Do you know?
Yeah, I don't remember the conversation exactly, but yeah, it is a thing where there definitely is, the algorithms are doing more and more problem solving kind of in the moment as you interact with them. It's happening more and more.
So, and do you think at all, like you were saying before, about this moment where they just kind of wake up and are like, okay, I've like this self-awareness. So it's all kind of boiling down to this conversation of when a machine becomes conscious, right? Is that really this sort of line that we're going to read?
Yeah, that's going to be a thing we're going to have to deal with. There's no doubt about it, because machines, they already have emotions now, although people don't think of it that way, but they do.
Could you give me an example of that real quick?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, again, like, the idea that, the reason we have emotions are how we make decisions, right? People who've had an injury to the brain where their emotional centers don't work, obviously they present a very flat affect. And you would think, okay, well, that's fine. How else would their life really change, right? They'll probably just have a much calmer life. But one of the weird side effects is they have a terrible time making decisions. They will make long lists of the pros and cons of a situation, but they have a really hard time deciding, because it turns out the way human beings make decisions is by emotions. And ultimately, in the end, after we have thought it over and turned it all over, we eventually do what feels right. And if you don't have that, nothing feels right, like you don't go anywhere, you don't do anything, right? Mm-hmm. And then again, the way machines make decisions right now is they have a bunch of things that, like, the algorithm kind of slants them this way and slants them that way. For example, a GPS algorithm, it's trying to find you the shortest path. And so to it, short paths feel good and long paths feel bad. And
gotcha.
It slants away from those paths, the long paths, because it knows those are bad. and it slants towards short paths. And then when it's done, it's like, this path feels right, and here you go.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. Light bulbs are going off. Now it's all clicking. I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah. And
That's deep.
you can't ask it why, because it doesn't know. Just like we have a lot of decisions. Like, you'll sit down and have a chat with somebody, and someone will say, do you like that person? You're like, no, I don't. And you say why, you're like, I don't know, I just have a feeling.
So that sounds like intuition.
It is, because inside of you, there's a bunch of things that have decided, yeah, these things make me comfortable, these things make me uncomfortable. You have the same thing going on, and eventually, pop, a little decision pops out, and you can't necessarily explain it, but that's kind of what it is. But the thing that machines don't have right now is they can't talk about it. They don't know about that. They're just intuition. And as soon as they get to the point where they can talk about it, think about it, reason about it, and discuss about it, that's when we're going to be in a place where we're like, uh-oh, surprise.
Right.
We're more like them than we thought, and they're more like us than.
Well, I mean, even for what you're saying already, it seems like we're a lot like them, because I mean, that's how intuition works with us. Like, when we have an actual intuition, we don't know why. You might be like, I don't know why, but like, I just hate this person. This person, just, there's something about him. Everything looks good, on the outside, but there's something, and I have this knowingness that I don't understand. So
that's right. And so for years, the artificial intelligence people were frustrated because they felt like, oh, what we're coding is so unlike the human brain, right? Because they thought of the human brain as our little talking higher intelligence part.
Right.
And yeah, it's really different than that. It turns out, no, what you've been coding is the lower level stuff. You've been making stuff that's actually more like human intuition tends to be. Obviously very, very different, but on some levels, structurally and functionally, operating in kind of a similar way. And sooner or later, people are going to start to come to these realizations. I mean, we're going to have, like, the 21st century is going to be very, very challenging for humanity, because we're going to be faced with this question of machine intelligence, and we're also going to be probably faced with a question of human immortality. And because that's kind of the end of humanity, basically. Humans are defined by being mortal. And once they're not, like, what does that mean anymore? And so we're going to be sort of philosophically beset from all directions. And it's going to be a lot of stuff to work out, but that's just nature of the world.
It's part of the journey.
Yep, the excitement of being human. Yep.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, then that leads me right into my second and last hard question. So in this vision, we talk about the universe as a simulation, and even making all these comparisons. Like, how far can we take that parallel? Like, could we look at this intuition? And I'm still, actually, my brain is still reeling from this whole conversation we've just had, because it really makes sense in so many ways. Like, I feel like somehow the machines are almost at like an unconscious intuitive level. They haven't yet woken up to the consciousness, right? That is of thinking and our conscious thinking and awareness. And, even we can talk about like super consciousness, and even the place where this like divine or like the genius that comes in, like Einstein, when he gets a solution, right? That whole kind of intuition that just somehow gives you like this magical information, like it's all interconnected on different levels. So I'm looking forward to unpacking that in my brain a little bit more. But how far can we take this, with like this kind of leveling up? And so simply, like, what is the purpose of the game? You make games, but what's the purpose of the game? What's the purpose of the game we're living in? And why are we even playing it?
Yeah. Right. So talk about sort of deep philosophical questions, right? In terms of the universe as a simulation, like, yeah, it's here. It seems to be here. As far as we know, the universe appears to exist as far as we can tell. But man, we don't understand. We don't know why it's here. We don't know where it came from. We don't know how it got here. We don't know what it's doing. We don't know what time is, right? I mean, there's all these debates about, is time actually a real thing? And all of that. And we have no idea. But here we are, and we're doing it and we're living it. I know a piece of central faith for me is that it's here for a reason.
Right.
And this is a fascinating question about, can things happen without a reason? And I think that's a huge that's a huge point of faith, I think, for a lot of people. And and then you get into really crazy questions like, well, does the reason have to come first, right? Is it possible that the way that time works, that maybe we make the reason later on? And
Right.
then, and again, wow, it's really heavy, deep stuff. We certainly don't know. But thinking about games and simulations is a great way to think about the nature of the universe, because it is a huge question of, if this is a simulation, what is it here for? Because there's a lot of really peculiar things about the universe that we don't understand, right? That in a lot of ways it has a lot of simplicity. In other ways, it has some strange complexities that seem like an awful lot. You know, when you get down to the quantum level, things are complex in ways that are strange. People have come up with these 11-dimensional theories to try and explain the complexity, the apparent complexity of the universe. And so there's an awful lot to contemplate with all of that. Like, why is it here? How does it operate? Where is it going? And definitely one of the most peculiar things is, why do we seem to be the only planet with life? Right? That's really weird.
Yeah.
Right? That's really hard to understand and explain. That'll definitely, that's probably a puzzle for the 22nd century, but there are a lot of things that are suspicious about the universe we live in.
Yeah, and it does all seem to like metaphorically relate to the idea of a game, right? The way that we go through life. Maybe 20 years ago we wouldn't have been able to see it, but now the kind of work you're doing and how, really advanced this has become, we can really see that there is a parallel there, and it makes you wonder.
Yeah, I mean, and the reason for that really is, human beings love solving problems. That's what we were evolved to do. That's been our success, because we're like a huge success on planet Earth, right? As a life form, we've taken over the whole planet because we have a certain design that allows us to solve problems better than any other life form that's ever come before. And we love solving problems. All games are a way of having fun solving problems. And so that's part of the reason that we love games, is because they're right at the heart of what human beings like to do best.
So maybe it's all just entertainment.
Yeah, it's hard to know. Anything's possible.
There does seem to be some sort of improvement that's built into it, though, right? I always think of when you're going through different levels on a game, and you're like, okay, I'm mastering this level, and I get to the next level, and now I can do all these things that I couldn't do, and I get like superpowers the higher I get, right? So, on some level that parallels in life. Hopefully we're learning and we're growing and we're becoming better at things as we go level by level.
Because progress, that's the reason games are full of progress, is because human beings love progress. If you do surveys of people at work about what is the thing that's most important to you in the workplace, is it the type of work, is it the people, et cetera, it always comes back to the same: progress is the most important thing. It's why people want raises so much. It's where inflation comes from, right? Because it's fun. You think about the economy, it doesn't make sense that the economy keeps going up. That doesn't make any sense. It should just sort of go up and down, drift around. But that's not what it does. It goes up and up. Prices go up and up and up and up. And the reason for that is people want that feeling of progress so bad that they're like, look, I need to make more money at work every year. I have to, otherwise I feel terrible about myself. And okay, well, we can pay everybody more, but everything in the world has to cost more if you do that. Everybody's like, fine, yes, we'll do that, right? And that's where it comes from. It's just because progress is so inherent to us. And that's why, if you look at games, that's one of the wonderful things about games. Games are really just a mirror of the human psyche. The things that work and succeed in games are the things that make us inherently human. So solving problems, making progress, achieving goals, yes, these are all the things that we love. And that's why games are full of them, because they're just a mirror of everything that human beings love.
I love that. And I never really thought of it that way. Are there any games that are like Zen games, that there's no progress, where it's just like being or enjoying?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for example, a really popular game for years has been the game Bejeweled, right? Which is a game all about doing a little matching three. And it has a mode where there are no points. You're just matching. You just match and match and match and match and match. And some people just love doing that. It's just, it's kind of like knitting,
Yeah.
right? Right? And I mean, knitting has the benefit of like a little more progress, but there's something about kind of doing rhythmic things with your hands and your mind. It's very
meditative.
Yeah, yep. So there's a whole class of games that are kind of in the realm of Zen games that are all about that rhythmic interaction.
It's kind of like a mandala where you're just playing for the sake of playing. Like you're building this thing and just doing it just for the process of doing it without any outcomes or without that progress, right, along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, I don't know. We might not have solved all the world's problems today, Jesse, but I think, we came up with some good food for thought.
Yeah, true enough.
Well, awesome. This has been such a great conversation. I'm going to be thinking about it for like the next 2 weeks. So thank you for sharing all of your wisdom and your bright ideas with us. And it's so great talking with you again. And for the rest of you guys out there, you can check out more about Jesse on his website, schellgames.com. All right. Thanks.
See ya. All right. Thanks a lot, Kim.
All right. Thanks.
Talk to you later.